I think most people are honestly in the middle, bro. I don't really think people are out there like specifically extreme on either end. Mm-hmm. Most people are in the middle, but the issue is like the goalpost has been moved so far that like people have to choose a side now. You can no longer be like, you know what, I'm in the middle, but I lean this way. It's like, nah, you're one or all.
Yeah, because it has to be the extreme. And I think it started in 2016 to where when it was Hillary or Trump, everybody was like, oh, you have to pick a side. You can't be middle ground.
It's very polarizing.
And it's gotten to a point now where truly, in my opinion, and I've said this time and time again, if you really want to cure the bigotry in the country, whatever the case is, travel is the fucking answer. Because more often than not, if you go and you experience, I guess, what the other people are living or whatever, you'll realize you're not that far off from what they're dealing with. Of course, there's the bigotry to a certain sort of level where you have, whether it be based on gender or color, sexuality, stuff like that. That will always exist. But to the level that they make it, it's really not.
Well, I think people want to make their problems bigger than they are.
Yeah.
So whatever their immediate problem is, that's the biggest issue in the world. Like, it's like
victimhood is in.
Yeah, it's like victimhood doesn't exist.
Victimhood is in. It's
no, but people will say like, oh, like I'm black and my struggle is worse than some people are. I'm poor and my struggle is worse. I'm white. I'm getting chastised.
Oppression Olympics.
Struggle. So it's like, yeah, it's who's getting oppressed the most.
It's the Oppression Olympics.
Right. It's Pride Month right now.
Yep.
You know, so like people that are, because it's weird, right? Because I saw a post, and I don't really have a thought on this, but like back then it was like, I'm gay, and they're like, yeah, we see you, and they're like, great. Mm-hmm. Or they're like, it's like, I'm gay, I'm like, we don't care. They're like, yay, no one cares that I'm gay. But now it's like, oh, I'm trans, and they're like, we don't care. It's like, what, you don't care?
Right.
So it's become like this thing where it's like, yo, imagine, so a great example, it was just recently like Asian Heritage Month. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know. But shit, imagine if I came out and I was like, yo, Asian Heritage Month. You guys, Asian Heritage Month. Come on now. You show up to my house, don't bring me no gift, like don't congratulate me on Asian Heritage Month. Come on, bro.
Because if you take into account about, what was it, 3 years
You're
ago
disgusting.
with the Stop Asian Hate campaign?
Bigots.
Right off the heels of the Black Lives Matter campaign, then you had the Stop Asian Hate. Like, and my thing is, I'm not going to make it seem as if, hey, you know, people don't go through getting victimized, whatever the case may be. But it comes to a point where it's like, all right, if this is your entire identity, like now you need me to constantly affirm your existence. What is really the goal here? Like, I saw a post on Twitter when they were talking, or X, whatever you want to call it, where they were talking about the different sort of celebration of pride across the globe. Where in there was a place in Europe, they had their pride parade where people were just outside marching, having time. You look in the US, people are in like fucking BDSM suits. People are butt naked. There was a dude, a gay guy, or whatever the case may be. This dude, butt naked, on a bike. He had what looked like a nipple for a penis, just out in public. And there's children that's around, and everybody's like, "Woo, yay!" It comes a point where it's like, "All right, we're going a little bit too far off the rail."
I think what it is, people want significance, right? It doesn't matter what your situation is, and in order to have some sort of significance in society, you got to do something great. You got to have an athletic achievement. You got to be rich. You got to be popular. You got to be famous. Like, it's really hard work to have some sort of significance in society. So what's the easiest way to get significance, acknowledgement without having to do any of the work? Just fucking choose an identity. Make it your entire thing.
Yep.
I'm Asian, and now my significance comes from me being Asian. I get recognition for being fucking Asian. I'm black. I'm a black creator. It's like you get your significance for being black, not being a creator.
Right.
Not being talented or funny. You get it from being black.
And it's bizarre to me because if we just do that based off demographic, nothing means nothing anymore.
Right.
And if you really relocate the location, because I think it's centralized in the West, you don't go to Africa and you try to pull these types of things off. It doesn't happen.
It doesn't work.
You don't go to India and do this type of stuff, and you pull that off. Like, it's so weird to me.
I think there was a country, it was like Peru or something. They made like trans like a mental illness. They classified it as a mental illness. In
Oh no,
Peru.
it might have been in Africa, and then I think there was like something going on with the government trying to tell them like, no, you must, or I forget what it was, but it's getting to a point now where I think across all demographics, it's not just a rag off of the trans folk, but truly it's getting to a point where now people are making, you know, whether it be sexuality, whether it be gender, whether it be race, their entire identity. Like this isn't just, you know, what you are, it's who you are.
Right.
I am a black man. But what are we doing? Like it comes to the point where you've done nothing else in your life except just exist, and now you want credit for the
That's
existence.
exactly what it is. It's an easy sell though, bro. Like, yo, you're gonna get credit for just doing nothing. People are gonna love that. They're gonna eat that up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, even with the plus size community, same thing.
Yeah.
It's getting to the point where now I saw a video where this girl, she documents the day in the life as a 26-year-old and what she eats. She went to Disneyland and ate 11,000 calories.
What the fuck?
From the moment she woke up in the morning, it's like a triple kind of breakfast. If you ever seen The Rock when he posts his cheat meals, it pales in comparison to what she ate that day.
Oh my God.
And my whole thing is, and I'm looking in the comment section, and
like,
people are like,
you're doing so great.
this is so great, you look amazing or whatever.
Right.
I'm like, okay, you can say somebody has a beautiful soul. That doesn't mean you have to lie about what they look like on the exterior. Yeah. Furthermore, you're enabling the behavior, because what positives are there from being so incredibly morbidly obese? There is literally no positive.
It applies to everything, though. It's like they're giving you a positive reinforcement for like things that you shouldn't get positive reinforcement for. Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm, like I said, oh, I'm black. Great. Like, are you talented? Have you done anything? Like, if you're a black lawyer, you can get like affirmation for that. You can get like reinforcement. Like, yo, you went to school, you put in a lot of hard work to become a lawyer. That's awesome, right? But it's like, I'm black, and you want acknowledgement just for being black. A little bit different. It's not the same thing. And because they get acknowledgement, oh, you're black, and that's where they get their acknowledgement from, it becomes their entire identity.
Right. Because now it's, and especially when you get to the point where it's like, hey, I'm a black lawyer.
Yeah.
The people almost no longer make it about the fact that you're a lawyer. Right. They make it about the fact that you're a black lawyer. So now it's like, all right, you get to the point where it's almost you're infallible. Because even if you were to lose a case, but you still got the representation. We got a black lawyer that's up in there. But if your win-loss record is like 1 in 27, right, and you lost a ton of cases, I no longer care if you're a black lawyer or not. You're a failing lawyer. Right. You got to do better. And we got to stop trying to give out participation trophies to people just because, representation. There comes a point where you take it way too far. And I think in this society now, we've taken it way too far. Yeah,
it goes the opposite way, too, because I experienced this as an Asian person. People always assume that, like, my family was, like, rich growing up. Yep. They assume, like, oh, you had money. Oh, you're smart. You're Asian. I'm like, bro, I'm kind of retarded. Like, I had a single mom. I didn't have, like, a rich family. I didn't come from money. I'm not, like, your traditional Asian person that you would consider like the crazy rich Asians. I wish I had that. That would have made my life great. But like I didn't have that growing up. So it operates the opposite way too. And then you see, like I see Asian people all the time that take pride in their Asianness, which is great. But it's like, what are you doing specifically? At least be an Asian doctor. I know your parents wanted you to be a doctor. At least do that. Then like, you'd be like, yo. But it's like, you can't make that your whole thing because you're not doing anything.
Yeah, we're removing meritocracy from society. It's like 100%. Now, especially amongst children, because I remember there was a conversation a few years back. James Harrison, he used to play football for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and his sons would get participation trophies for playing sports, and he would purposely deny them and say like, yo, you're not about to just get awarded for just being here. Right. I remember when I was growing up, and the only kind of participation trophy that people would get is attendance. Like, oh man, you showed up, yay, right? You showed up the most, you got the participation, or I should say the attendance award or something. But nobody ever held that in such high regard. Right. Now, just simply being somebody who showed up, we make it seem as if you've won a championship.
It's fucked up because like they do participation trophies. That idea, they just taken that and like plastered it across society. Yeah. So now society gives you participation trophies. So then everyone feels like they belong and that they feel good about it. And like, here's the thing. I think in theory, it's a really good idea. I love the idea of everyone feeling happy and like they belong. But unfortunately, The world doesn't work like that.
It doesn't.
It doesn't work like that. Like, you can't fake the funk. You can't fake hard work. You can't fake if we're gonna go like results, you can't fake money, right? You can't fake money. You can't fake abs. I guess you can, but that's
it could be an illusion situation.
Yeah.
But if you're actually getting ingested, like there's people who've done it.
If you're like morbidly obese,
Right.
you can't fake abs.
Right.
You can't fake money. You can't fake like achievements, like real accomplishments, right? Like a championship of some sort. You can't fake these things. So you can give people these participation trophies all you want, but it's not training them. This is a perfect analogy, actually. You know when they keep animals in a zoo? Let's say you take a lion out of the savannah, put it in a zoo, feed it its entire life, give it an easy life, give it a pat on the back, be like, yo, you're lioning it up, bro. You take that same lion, put it back in the fucking...
Oh, it's over.
Yeah, you put it back in the savannah, that lion's getting cooked by every other lion that's had to earn its keep. So the same thing applies to people. Like, you're giving them these participation trophies their entire life, throw them out into the world chews them up, spits them out. And they get angry because they're not getting real life acknowledgement. But it's like, because you fucking took the easy way out. Right.
I think there needs to be an element of adversity that everybody has to deal with. And I think now, for sure, when there's a contingent of people who, when they feel adversity, they quit, or they feel as if, hey, I'm dealing with the adversity now, I shouldn't have to deal with this.
Yeah.
So you know what? All adversity's bad. This is wrong. We should never have to go through, loopholes and or roadblocks throughout
Facts.
life. And it's gotten so bad to where now, legitimately, I'm very curious what in the next 15 to 25 years will look like when it comes to people, whether it be in school, because now they're just passing children left and right who haven't even earned it. Like a kid who went viral had like a 1.7 GPA. I don't know if it was legitimate or not, but the conversation was what was interesting, to me, because you can't trust everything that's online now.
Yeah.
But this guy allegedly had graduated with a 1.7 GPA, and the reason why it happened was that the teachers were tired of, constantly seeing him in school. I guess he was like a super senior or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
And what's bizarre is, on the surface, it looks like, all right, well, you know what? No child left behind, or, well, they're just kids, who really uses school anyway. You now have to become a functioning member of society. Like, life continues. Think about it. A lot of times people never really look back because maybe they were those children. We've all experienced absolute dumbasses when we were in school.
Yeah.
They existed amongst us. We're well into our adulthood now. Those people are adults. Unless they're behind bars or they just so happen to be deceased, they're out in society. You would assume either you changed your ways, but let's call it what it is. In real life, how many people, or I should say there's still a percentage of people who just never really evolved. They stay dumbasses from adolescence or childhood into adolescence into adulthood. So those people are still out there. Who's to say that won't continue to happen now at an accelerated pace when we're just letting everybody through the door?
Well, you see it in society. Like, I not reminisce, I daydream a lot. I look out into the world, right, all these cars on the freeway, and I think about all of these people going to their little jobs, doing their job, coming home somewhere, living somewhere. Like, I'm like, you guys are really just existing. You're like little ants, like moving about, and you're not trying to do anything outside of that. But that's because you were programmed from a young age, like, hey, everything's gonna be handed to you. Here, your job handed to you, this is handed to you, this is handed to you. You just get what you can get. So now they just get what they can get, and they're not living any sort of like extraordinary life. And maybe and you could say in the comments, maybe I'm an asshole, maybe I'm insensitive for feeling this way because I understand life is hard. But like, bro, do something. Like, I don't know. It's really...
It's bots. It's like bots because
NPCs,
it's in a situation where, and we've talked about it before, where I said, if you're happy and you're content, then this doesn't apply to you.
And it's all the same people, sorry to cut you off, but it's all the same people that you were saying that like they're dumbasses in school, they go out into the real world and now they're dumbasses in the real world. That's the way I look at it. It's kind of like, yo.
Because there are some people who exist, whether it's they go to work, whatever the case may be, and they're having a great time. Like they have their moments where you can allocate time towards extraordinary things, or whatever the case is, and that's perfectly fine. That's not to rag on them at all. But it's the other people who say, man, I wish life could have been different for me. Well, you still have the capabilities to do so.
Right.
Unless you're in a situation where you have a disability that then prevents you from doing something, whether that be mental or physical. If you are in a situation to where you cannot, like there's no alternative, like you got a terminal kind of illness. I guess that's a little bit different than a disability. So you've got a limited amount of time. But more often than not, the reason why people aren't where they want to be, or at least attempting on the road, is themselves.
And what's really frustrating is it's bled into every aspect of society, specifically here in America. So recently, Trump just got convicted for 34 different felonies.
Right.
Now, are we going to sit here and pretend like this wasn't politically motivated? Like this was just going to happen regardless? You know? So it's like, and I see people, when he got convicted, everyone, like there were some people on the internet celebrating. They're like, he got convicted. He's a felon. And for some reason, they think like this is going to change the public perception of him. When I think it's the opposite. I think people are now looking at it more like, when I saw that, I was like, that's fucked up. Because yeah, he's a martyr.
Yeah, he's a martyr.
He's a martyr. Because you look at everything, like all the Epstein people, they're fucking scot-free. Hunter Biden with the whole laptop shit, all scot-free. Everything that's kind of happening that you see, like all these crimes being committed.
Clinton, the deleted emails and everything of that nature.
Nobody's getting any shit for that. But you take this dude, Trump, you put him in a New York, very liberal courthouse with a very liberal jury, and he gets convicted on 34 different felonies. And it was like hush money. It was like paying off.
Yeah,
his, like,
hush money, and then I think
chick.
it was because it was like misdocumented on his business
okay,
stuff.
yeah,
So
he
then
was
that's
like,
kind of how they.
Slick. Yeah, he was just like.
That's how they ended up. But then even in situations, correct. Vince McMahon did it with what he was doing in WWE.
I was just categorizing my taxes earlier, and I took some shit that was like I don't know. We went to dinner like 2 years ago. I'm like filing back taxes. We went to dinner like 2 years ago. I forgot what it was. It was like not a really entertainment dinner, but I put like, client entertainment.
Yeah.
And for someone to go back, if I were to try to become the president, get really famous, a bunch of people hate me, and they're like, let's look into his things. Oh, you had dinner here 3 years ago, and you said it was a client entertainment, but we found video footage. It was just you hanging out with your friends.
Well, what I read was the reason it's such a big deal is because if he were trying to hush Stormy Daniels to protect his family, it would have been a big deal, right? You just tell someone to be quiet and give him some money. But because he did it in his running for president, it's sort of like misguiding investors. Misguiding voters.
But okay, but.
By the way, this is coming from a Trump supporter. So that's their thing. Like, well, you had things that you were hiding from voters, and that could have changed their votes. So that's intercepting and that's interfering in elections.
Bro, they did the same exact shit with the Hunter Biden laptop, though. They said Hunter Biden laptop. Yeah.
Right.
So it's like they've done it on both sides, but how come only one side's getting prosecuted for it?
I think that's ultimately where I look at it, and because I've talked about it publicly, I don't give a shit about either side. Like I've never been one person who leans in one particular kind of. Well, I guess if that's where I fall into, if that's what it'd be defined as, and there it is. But for me, I look at it objectively, and what was so bizarre was, all right, well, he's the first convicted felon, former president, something of that nature. I'm like, that's interesting, because throughout history of this country, how many presidents and former presidents, I guess there'll always be a president, so there's no need to say former president, have blood on their hands, war crimes, skeletons in their closet. That is public knowledge.
Right.
That we'll just say, hey, we'll skip over this one, but well, he's the worst one because now he's a convicted felon. Like, are we really going to sit over here and make it seem as if that's the case? Don't get me wrong. Ultimately, once you're convicted, you're convicted. It is what it is. There's been a ton of people who've been innocent and been convicted, whatever the case may be. But if we're going to make it seem as if this is the worst possible thing that could have ever been done, we're in a clown world. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and this is the only, like, I agree. I'm kind of with you on, like, I don't really care for politics. It doesn't affect me too much. But I think the one thing that's kind of scary for me is kind of like, this is, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but based on the last 4 years, this feels like it's America's last chance to, like, get it right. Because if you get Joe Biden for another 4 years, I think the damage that you do to this country is irreparable. And it sucks, because I'm American. Right? Like, I might be Asian, but I'm American. I grew up here. I was born here. And this country gave me the opportunity to make millions of dollars as a fucking kid, broke kid with an immigrant parent. Like, this shit changed my life. So I love this country. If they get it wrong again, I think the damage is irreparable. And fuck it, I gotta move, bro.
Yeah,
the craziest part.
For sure. I think we will have the Civil War situation.
The shittiest part, it doesn't even affect me. It affects everybody out there.
Right.
It affects everybody out there. Like, the fact that people can't fucking afford groceries or food, and everyone's like not like putting 2 and 2 together. It doesn't make sense to me. Crazy. You know, it's crazy.
I went to Target for a toilet scrubber. You know how much it was? It was $20.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So even me, when I see numbers on some shit, I got cheeseburgers for me and my wife the other day. It was like fucking like $60. And I think about it, I'm like, yo, I don't give a fuck. But like, how are people out there existing? How are people out there living in general?
That's ultimately what the difference situation is, because I think so many people are now, and perhaps entertainment has played a role, because politics has become like not necessarily the new entertainment, but this is like premium, I guess, because it's on a higher level, right. And it's reality television, but it's really reality per se, because it's gotten to a point where now I look at the people who are, whether it be in middle America, like the real staunch, heavy Trump supporters, or in the incredibly liberal, big city, super Biden supporters, and you consider what your day-to-day life looks like. Regardless of what's going on in the office, you're fucked. Your main focus should be, how can my quality of life get better, and who's willing to go and facilitate that? Because how often have we heard people get behind a podium, politicians year in, year out, give nothing but lip service, and nothing has changed? The populace is getting fucked. And you've mentioned, because your experience being rich now for what now? 4 or 5 years now?
5 years, yeah.
5 years. So half of a decade, you've been completely rich to where everything is not a problem. Like, your life does not change. It doesn't matter who's in politics, whatever the case may be. Your life does not change. Whenever the populace is talking about, well, tax the rich, make it harder for them, the loopholes, they exist. They're going to continue to exploit it. Like, smart people will always be able to prevail.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're somebody who, you're just in the middle of it, life has not improved for you at all. Have you ever pondered an alternative? Maybe the way you've thought for time and time, year in, year out, has been wrong. Maybe the way you've been voting has been wrong. Maybe you might want to entertain something outside of just your emotion. Because truly, if we do have another 4 years of Biden, which I always believe that the president is just a figurehead, but let's take a look at what it represents. This is a brother who clearly got dementia or Alzheimer's. He has no clue what the fuck's going on. Yeah. If this is supposed to be your world leader, not to say, oh, well, Trump is so much better, but look, let's be objective. Look what's in front of you.
Yep.
Is this the person you would want representing you in the country? Well, but the alternative, no. So you're saying you're comfortable with this versus that solely off the basis of, well, I hate this person. Well, what can they do versus what can they do? Like, it's gotten ridiculous now.
I think part of it, it's two really fucked up things. You'll see this a lot. In the most blue states, they have the most like poor people. They have the most people affected. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason that it swings that way is because you'll have these politicians that'll go up there and just make false promises. They'll just lie to people. And that's how they get votes, right? You lie, you get votes. Mm-hmm. And people don't have the wherewithal to like, I'm using a lot of big words today. I'm fucking fired up. They don't have the wherewithal to like think for themselves and be like, well, how does that make sense? It's crazy to me that the richest areas will always vote red. The most affluent areas where people are living the best, that want like that understand money, they always vote red. But the people that are broke, that don't understand any of this stuff, they tend to lean blue, right? So it's really fucked up because politicians will just lie to someone and do this. But the way I look at it, this is what I tell everybody. If you had to get on a plane and the pilot of the plane is these two guys, and you have to trust your life with them, because think about it like this. The plane is the country. I know it might not seem like it. It's hard to conceptualize that. Mm-hmm. But if you have to get on a plane, you have to choose a pilot for that plane. Who are you choosing? Who are you trusting with your life to land you safely? Are you really going to be like, yo, here, Joe Biden, hop on board. I'll jump on the plane. Take me home. You're not going to do that. You're going to die. Like, if you gave people most of the chances, and maybe some people would like lay their life on the line. They're like, you know what? I'm so principled that I don't really care about my life. I'll give my life for Joe Biden. Sure, good for you. But 99% of people are going to be like, yeah, I want to fucking land safely. I want to make it alive. Let's choose this guy, Trump.
You know what's interesting about that is, and I think we talked about it before, where I said, you know, I think there's a percentage of the voters who are pro-Trump. I think there's a large populace that are anti-Trump. I think the smallest microcosm of people are pro-Joe Biden. This is more about Trump than it is about Joe
100%.
Biden. I think and it's kind of like that situation with what happened with Trump versus Hillary. There was a high contingent of people who was pro-Trump. There was a great percentage of people who was anti-Hillary. And then you had your pro-Hillary people. So it's the same sort of situation. But going back to what you said regarding landing the plane, if you had to choose your pilot between Biden and Trump, what's very interesting is I think a great deal of people would refuse to make a decision. And that's why we find ourselves in the position that we're in.
Yeah.
Because if I told you, because everybody's played the game where it's like, would you rather?
Right.
And somebody introduces a third option when there's only two. It's this or it's that. Oh, but then I don't want to choose this or that. What if, and you start making up these new scenarios.
Yeah.
That's where we're existing in right now, where people are just, well, we could have this or we could have that, but what if we get this and then this were to happen? No. It's one or the other. What is it going to be? Now, granted, we have a third party. There are other stuff like that.
I think people are indecisive.
People refuse to make a decision and stick with it, because if you chose here and it fails, you got to take accountability for, hey, I voted this way, it did not work out, that's on me. People don't want to be willing to go and do that, so they'll say, oh no, you know what, we'll just do that, because they're gonna mess it up anyway, so who try to lessen the blow for their role in what happened.
And this is coming from someone like, so in 2020 I posted a little like Biden thing on my story on Instagram. Because I had 4 years of Trump, and I was like, man, this ain't it. I don't like the people hating on each other. Like, I'm a very non-confrontational guy. Like, as much as I, like, might get confrontational because I'm passionate, when I see people arguing and people hating each other, I don't like it. So I was like, all right, listen, I have money. I understand this might not be the ideal candidate, but I'm going to, like, support Biden in this case because I didn't like this. Now, after 4 years of having Biden, I'm like, no, this is a fucking shit show. People are dying out there. People are starving. People are struggling. People can't afford to eat. Fuck that. Let's go back. So I think people, I could be wrong, but I think people are kind of waking up to that. And they're like, yeah, let me stick with that. There was a statistic. I think it was like in 2020, Trump had it was like 8 to 13% of the black vote. Now he has 22% of the black vote. So I think a lot of people are waking up to it. They're starting to realize kind of what the fuck these people are actually doing and how they're affecting your life. Because politics doesn't affect you, like I said, unless you're in the matrix, in the simulation. Unless you're out there, politics doesn't really affect you.
Right. And then what's so weird to me, and we've touched on it before, is I hate how it's gotten to a point where there's such a high level of hate for each side, from each side, as if we're not the same country. Yeah. It's so weird
There's
to
no
me.
unity.
Like, how
There's
do
no
you,
unity.
because, and I've seen this be the argument time and time again where somebody says, like, and I saw it, it didn't really start when Obama was in office, but Obama was the first president who really had social media at like booming, and then ultimately when Trump came to power in 2016, it was at its peak, and it's been growing ever since. But when people would say, hey, this president couldn't get this stuff done because, well, the cabinet was, the opposite, they were Republican and they were Democrat, or they were Democrat and they were Republican, and they were vetoing and they were blocking these types of. So if we have this understanding of no matter who you have in power or in certain sort of position, and they can't seem to get their policy passed because, well, the opposite side has the checks and balances. So if the Congress is primarily, Democratic, and you have a Republican as the president, or the Congress is Republican and you have a Democrat as the president, if they're constantly canceling each other out, you don't look at the government like, oh, wait a minute, hold on, we're getting hoed here. Yeah. Like, you don't, that's what's been one of the things. I'm like, yo, why do you put so much trust in these people to be able to be the ones who goes and leads you if it constantly cancels itself left and right?
The craziest shit is everyone's bought and paid for in politics anyways.
Right. So everybody got a price.
Everyone got a price. So when you talk about Illuminati, you look at all these big corporations, it's like they got their hands in everyone's pockets. They're kind of the puppeteers, they're the puppet masters, moving everything around anyways. So it's like, you can vote. So I was talking to my best friend, Eric. You met him. Yeah. Right? And he lives in Nevada now, Las Vegas. And he's a black guy. He has a family. So like he's been like on a gun kick lately. Like, so I'm like, yo, so who are you voting for? Because you've always been like, he's a big environmentalist, pussy. And, but now he has kids, he has daughters. So he's become like more right leaning, like he has guns and stuff. He was very anti-gun, but now he has guns. And he moved from California to Las Vegas, which is less liberal.
Is it did his mind start to change when he moved, or was it in the process of
No, it
getting
was in
ready
the
to
process.
move?
The reason he moved was because of that. So I asked him, I was like, yo, like you're actually like very in the center, more so than myself. Like, who are you voting for? And he goes, well, I'm not voting. I'm only voting for my local politicians. I'm like, why would you vote local when those are the easiest ones to buy? Like, there's local politicians I saw, like Google and Meta, like when they voted against the TikTok bill.
Yeah.
Google and Meta were the biggest donors for that specific politician's campaign who voted against or voted to ban TikTok. Those are the easiest fuckers to buy, so why would you vote for them? And they're going to tell you exactly what they want to tell you. They're going to tell you their policies. But the second that money comes into play, you buy those motherfuckers.
And so, that's one of the reasons why I've always said you have to follow the money to be able to identify who has the power.
Like even Joe Biden, right? Like you follow the money, you look at his son is getting big deals, and obviously he's going to look out for his son.
Right.
So guess where his influence is coming from? Whoever's taking care of his son. So with Trump, I think the biggest thing with Trump, the fucker doesn't care about money. I like the idea of like having, I think there has to be a commitment to your country genuinely, that you love your country, because Trump is a billionaire. You're not going to buy the fucker, you know? Like he's going to make money no matter what, so you can't buy him. So it makes him like, corporations don't like him because you can't buy him, but it makes him good for the country because he's just going to do what's best for all the people. You know that he's not going to get swayed by money. Right? And the same would apply to any other. So I think in order to run for politics, you should, two things. You should either already be rich, can't be bought, or you should have been like a military veteran or something. Like the dude that runs Florida, DeSantis, he's a veteran. So the dude has genuine love for his country, and he wants to see the best for this country, you know? So I like the idea of like having either military veterans or people that are already rich running for office, because these people have no ulterior motives. If you take someone that's like broke, has ulterior motives, now they can be swayed by money. It's the easiest ones to corrupt, and it kind of fucks the entire system.
And I think regarding veterans, there needs to be a focus on their well-being when they return back. Because whenever I see a homeless veteran, the first thing that comes to mind is, how did you get to this point? How did this happen here? And the fact that that percentage is rising is incredible to me, because they legitimately lay their lives on the line. No matter how you may feel about the military and, oh man, you know, they're just going into different places and imposing democracy and all this other stuff. These are still actual human beings that are legitimately, for all intents and purposes, pawns in the political game of the country.
Right.
So you have families that have had to bury their sons and daughters behind them willfully signing up to go. Because it's not like with the selective service, if they were to have a draft, then we could sit here and be like, all right, we had some people go against their will. But damn near everybody who's in the military now, they went on a unilateral decision to go out there. So we should truly, as a country, if I was a veteran, I'm looking out for, if I'm going to go step into the voting, you know, if I'm going to the polls, it's got to be who's going to prioritize me and my people. Because I'll never understand how veterans can be left out on the back burner. Like, you literally put your life on the line, legitimately, for the country. If you're not prioritized, well, then fuck all this shit.
Right. I think the genuine just battle between it, because most veterans, they lean right anyways.
Yep.
Because those are the ones that care. I think it's a genuine battle of like social welfare on the side of like liberals. It's like social welfare. That's what they lean on. That's their pillar of like strength, is their social welfare concept. We're going to make sure everyone feels good. Versus the right, where it's like they lean on the idea of like prosperity. And that's kind of like the pillar that they lean on. They want like strong economy. They want people to have jobs. They want to have a strong military. They want to be the best country in the world, right? So they lean on opposite things. But I think people, when they assume the right, they assume that people are going to get shit on, because that's what happens with prosperity. And people, they look at the left, they assume that, hey, country's going to go to shit because you're just caring about the people, you know. It's one of those fucked up things, bro. I don't know. It's hard. I feel like we talk about it a lot. It's like one of those questions that racks my mind. I mean, the world talks about it a lot. There's news stations dedicated to politics 24/7.
Right.
You know, so.
I think it comes down to, and we've always talked about why it's so important to go and make as much money as you possibly can to where you can kind of exit from said matrix. Because when you're in a spot where you're dependent on somebody else to make your life much more inhabitable, it's a very difficult position to be in.
Right.
And I think there needs to be truly across the country a level of education, but then also an understanding of like, yo, you can't depend on anybody to come save you. And there needs to be an understanding of that. Like, even if you have disability, you should be compensated if you're in a spot where like you got an autistic child or maybe you're autistic.
Right.
There should be people who are looking out for you. There's a ton of people who can't get aid. And then you look at it like, is there a hierarchy of people who can get aid, who can't? Like this, down the line, Social Security, 20 years from now, there's probably not going to be around. It's crazy.
As fucked up as it seems, I saw like a graphic on this about like how societies prosper throughout time. And it typically works where they'll have a king. The king, like a good king, will make a society prosperous. Mm-hmm. But then that king model only works if you have a good leader. Because then the second you like get a shitty king.
Right. Revolt, coup d'etat.
Now you install a government of the people.
Yep.
And then
Democracy.
they vote. But then the government of the people, they don't know how to run a fucking country. So then
Correct.
they just it goes to the shitter. So you need a king again to pick it
then
all up.
You need a king again, dictatorship.
And then it's just like a cycle, right?
Uh-huh.
So like I think what America needs right now, it sounds so fucked up, but it's just like a king to look at everything and be like, all right, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. We'd be out of this shit in like 10, 20 years.
Right, because
be
within 2 generations, because the elder guard,
right.
the older people, they're on their way out. So of course, because they're not accustomed to that, but they probably remember when the country was at its peak, they'll be cool with it. Yeah. The generation before and then into our generation, because I think right now we have probably about like 4 to 5 generations, but really 4, because the youngest generation is like infants to toddlers at this point, so they don't count. And then the children up until about teenage years, they're still in no position to do anything. So they're very malleable. I think between the teenage space to about 40s, that's the area of people that will be either revolting against like having that kind of monarchy, kind of dictatorship kind of situation. But then there's still a percentage of the people who are willing to fall in line and actually agree with that, ideology. So because there's almost a yearning for a supreme leader at the top, it's a high probability that could actually end up working. But it's just a matter of who is it that you fall in line behind.
It's like a constitutional thing though, so
right,
I don't know. I feel like America's crumbling under its weight a little bit.
We have no nationalism. That's
we have no nationalism.
Nobody gives a fuck. Like
other countries love it. Like you look at like rival country, they're like, yo,
they're
buying into it. They're like, yo, we'll give you some money to just plant all this fucking propaganda. Whatever you want to divide the country even more, take our money. We'll help you do it. Mm-hmm. Like that's kind of where we suck, because the freedom it's a plus and a minus. The freedom is great because we're allowed to make our own choices and do what we want to do, and we have like so many options available. But because of that, it's really easy to just like
get distracted,
fed everything. Yeah.
Because truly, I think, especially with like outreach, I think people primarily, like now when you get riches or whatever the case may be, they primarily want to help other places.
Right.
Like, oh man, I want to give back to those impoverished nations outside of the country. To hell with what's going on here. So people almost, you come to America, you get what you can, then you fucking leave. Yeah. Before it's like, all right, I'll come to America and I'll stay. I think there's a percentage of people who come here, get what you can, sap as much resources as you can, and go somewhere else and live like a king. You should be able to live like a king here. Yeah. But it doesn't seem as if that's the case anymore. But yeah, it's bizarre. It's really bizarre.
What a depressing fucking episode we just had, man.
Hey, listen.
This shit was morbid.
You think so?
This shit was a depressing episode. Listen, man. I think I have hope for America. I have hope for American people. As an American, and I classify myself as an American. I'm not gonna say I'm an Asian, and I deserve credit for being Asian. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I did the fucking black.
What do the Asians have? Because the blacks have the black power fist. We have the black power fist. Oh, they do this?
So, as an Asian, no, I'm an American first, man. You know, so I grew up here. Again, this country gave me opportunities. I have hope for America. I think that people are going to figure it out on their own. I don't think people are as dumb as the media will allow you to think they are. And I think they're going to figure it out, and we're going to salvage this thing. Or I could be wrong and we all just fucking die. But
I mean, that can happen. And lastly, just because I too I'm born, raised here. I'm a Haitian American. My parents first generation born here. But I always find
credit for being Haitian.
Yeah.
Black History Month.
Absolutely.
That was like February.
Well, I celebrate on being Haitian every month, so at least there's that. But I find it very interesting. Whenever it's somebody who had came to the country, they almost have more pride in being an American than people who were born here. And I think there is a problem with that. I think if you were born here, you don't recognize the privileges that you have.
Facts.
Because, and it goes back to what I said earlier in the episode. I think if we were to prioritize people traveling to go see how other people live, they'll have understanding and appreciation for where it is that they come from. Because even if you in like the deepest of the hoods or in the slums or when you're in the trailer parks, life may not be great. But if you look at what the alternative may have been, like if you had to actually go out and hunt for your food.
The shittiest parts here,
it could be paradise
are nowhere near
for
as
people.
shitty as the shittiest parts in other countries.
Right. Because if I was watching a video of this, like it's a tribe. I don't know if it was Tanzania or wherever it may have been, but they had one that was in India. They had one that was in Africa. And they hunt like to survive. They were walking around with like meat that was hung around their neck to go. And this guy had hunted. I think they were doing a documentary kind of style video. It was on Instagram. This guy hunted for like 7 to 15 some hours to bring food back to his wife and children. And they're just sitting there waiting. And can you imagine the responsibility that goes into like it's a legitimate olden days kind of living where if he doesn't come back home, because there's still a possibility you can die out there.
Yep.
Your family is literally depending on you to eat. And you yourself, you might not make it back home. You don't have that happen. Of course, there's violence and stuff like that, but it's really survival of the fittest out there.
What's crazy is over there, it's like you're battling environment. Here, you're battling yourself.
Right.
Here, we're killing each other, whereas over there, they're. And the craziest part, as fucked up as it seems, if they had a common enemy, let's say like this is a crazy movie idea. Let's say you just took a bunch of lions, just let them loose in the hood. They stop shooting each other. They be shooting these lions.
Absolutely. People will come together.
That's a political. Listen, that's one of those like you know those like a Spike Lee movie. That's a Spike Lee movie right there. You take like the hood, and you fucking set lions free in there, and then like in the beginning they're like shooting each other, but then it becomes like a story about unity because like yo, let's band together and use these gats to shoot these lions.
That's why I think us as humans, we have an element of us where we're kind of retarded. Like really, we're kind of stupid. Because if we actually came together, if you think about the best times of when you were kids or whatever, it's a real community when you're together. If we just pooled our resources together, nobody would be fucking broke. There'd be no reason to be broke because you'd look out for people. But everybody wants excess. Everybody wants a bunch of fucking shit at the behest and expense of the next person. So if and we talked about it before where some people are willing to not even win. They're just content if you don't win. Yeah. There's legitimately people who's out there.
Mentality. I just made a video about this. I talked about it. It's like, why is it that a lot of rich people just collaborate and help each other out, do business deals? I go to a room. Isn't it crazy? Whenever I go back home and I talk to my friends from back home where I grew up in LA, they're all kind of like hating on like like you're too good for us now. Oh, you're rich. Like, yo, like let me have some money. Like you're rich. Instead of being like, yo, teach me how to do it, help me do it. Or they're like, oh, like you can't relate no more. Like you're not cozy here. Like it's almost like they drag you down. Versus when I go to a dinner at a nice place, I went to a networking dinner the other week with a bunch of there was like at least $1 billion in that room between all the people that were in there. It was like a room of 10 people. Some guys were doing like $250 million a year. And the amount of information that we shared and collaboration that was done, the amount of deals, the amount of phone numbers exchanged, and I've went and hung out with these people individually since then. It's crazy. So the fact that like you go out to where people are broke and they just fucking fight. They don't want anyone to win over there. And you go out to where everyone's rich, they want everyone to rich. They want everyone to be better. So it's just a fucked up way in the way that like people think in these separate groups of people, and I think the change needs to happen there.
And that's why I tell people lean with value, because funny enough, even if you have nothing, you can be somebody who's completely broke but then carry yourself like you're rich, not because based off of aesthetic alone, but if you actually walk around and you become a valuable person to somebody, they may see you like you're a diamond in the rough. You could walk into a damn room of these billionaires, collective net worth amongst everybody, and you could have a very unique story. If somebody who's over there has a podcast, well, I'd like to interview this person or something like that. All of a sudden, you're providing value to a platform despite the fact that you have nothing, versus going in there, oh man, y'all all got money, I ain't got nothing over here. Start hating and try to pull people down. You mentioned on TikTok, you had gone viral, and people we're talking about, oh man, the penthouse can't be yours, you're renting it or whatever. And I think we talked about it in a prior episode of like the stupidity that goes behind a comment like that. Because let's just say if I was renting Airbnb, because you are renting in the penthouse, but let's just say if you were renting an Airbnb, how much you think it would cost per day to stay inside of a penthouse?
Something like this, if you're gonna Airbnb this, you're paying like fucking $2,500, $3,000 a day.
Right. And how often do you go live on TikTok?
I go live probably twice a week, so yeah.
Twice a week, right? And how often do you post content?
I mean, I post every day, so.
So unless you were recording multiple times within the isolated days that you rent, that's still what? Maybe what, $5,000 if you were paying per week, if you had to rent it out for $2,500 a day?
Yeah, and the craziest shit too, right? There's pictures of me and my wife on the wall.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know, and people have the audacity, they say, oh, but those pictures look like easy to frame. I'm like, do you genuinely fucking think?
Imagine the effort. Like, it's like the Dave Chappelle skit.
I would rent an Airbnb and put up pictures of me and my wife for a day to fake it for a 9-second video on social media. It's fucking ridiculous. People
have such limiting beliefs, but then I think because you can't fathom it, it's like, hey, I got to bring this person back down, because it does nothing to elevate you. You're just looking at like, oh no, I'm just gonna tear this person down. What does this do?
They see me do it, and they're like, this guy doesn't look that smart. That guy doesn't look that like intelligent, especially the way I talk to. So they see that and they're like, oh no, it has to be fake. There's no way this fucking guy did it. It has to be fake, and then they'll drag you down.
It's wild to me. It's wild to me.
You see it all the time too. So like whenever I have friends that are black guys, anytime they pull up in a nice car or something, like, oh, are you an artist? Are you an athlete? And it's like, they're like, no, I own a business. But they automatically assume it's like, oh, are you an athlete? Or are you, like my friend Van, I have a friend Van. Everywhere we go, they are like, oh, are you a football player? And like, cause he played college football, and he's like, no, I own a marketing agency.
Right.
Completely opposite of like what people think, but they always just assume, hey, are you a football player? And it takes away credit from what they actually do, but it's like, because people can't fathom, like, oh, there's no way this guy got rich with anything outside of sports or music.
And there's been people who lean into it. Like there was a guy who I didn't meet him, but I know of him. He exists out in Atlanta, big real estate mogul. I think right now he got like almost 1,000 doors, maybe about like 800 something, but super multi-millionaire. I think he's gonna end up I think he might have built $100 million business already with his business, but every time that he posts on social media, he's like this massive super flexer. He needs to flex. So, but every time he's out in his Lambos, because I think he has 2 Lambos, a Rolls Royce, and maybe something else. Every time he always posts, he's like, yeah, and I did it through real estate, no athlete, no artist. So I'm like, you just shouldn't feel like you have to constantly say that. Because when I see somebody in a nice car, or I see somebody in a big house, or I see somebody on a large yacht, I'm like, oh, I wonder what they do for a living. Yeah. I never immediately put them in a box.
But I think the reason they do that is because people put them in a box, so they have to like kind of like address it, like, yo, I don't do that, I earned it myself. Because I understand that. I understand that. Like I like some videos, I'll be like, yo, no rich parents, I grew up broke. I have to say that because people automatically will.
Yeah, because at least now they can sit over there and try to, like, if you see a beautiful woman who's driving in a G, well, maybe not so much G-Wagon now because it's more commercialized, but let's call it what it is. You got a beautiful woman who's coming out of a Ferrari, coming out of a Lambo. You're like, oh, she must be on OnlyFans. Who's her husband?
OnlyFans.
She's on OnlyFans, or she's doing something that's regarding like the beauty or the body. You almost never attribute it towards business. But I completely detached myself from that thought process ever since maybe around around like 2019, 2020. With the boom of social media, I look at it like, yo, there's so many different ways to make money.
Facts.
Why am I going to sit over here, see that this is a beautiful person that's coming out of this here car and just assume, oh no, it must be who you're attached to. Of course, when you find out like, oh, well, you know, you're married to somebody, that checks out. But then beforehand, I don't try to cast their judgment over there. The only time in which I do cast that judgment is if somebody's fat. Then I'll be like, oh man, you're this large and you're successful. Why don't you apply that to your weight? But that's a different conversation for a different day.
Cool. Anyways, guys.
Yeah. So that is a great way to bring this one to a close here. Which episode would this be? This would be 30.
Wait. We gotta post this one after the one.
Oh yes. We're gonna do this one after.
We're gonna do current events on the next one.
Right. We got current events on the next one. So this would be, well, I guess it's an untitled. Yeah, 42. We'll throw out. I don't know. We'll throw out a number. One way or another. We appreciate you guys listening through. And again, congratulations to the winner in the last episode of the Amazon gift card. Hopefully you comment down in the comment section and let the people know that you're enjoying, your gift. But this has been yet another episode of the Assiduous podcast. I am the diligent, vigilant, meticulous, sagacious, conscientious, analytical, methodical individual, the chiseled Adonis. He is Rene Lacade, the serial entrepreneur, Filipino Prince Tycoon.
Rene Lacade.
Yes, indeed.
Said my name twice.
And this is, he
did it wrong this time. That's crazy.
I said Rene Lacade first rather than saying it towards the end, but there it is. But this is, Assiduous. This is
rough close there.
Yeah, this is
Rough
landing.